Hello, hello, anybody? Hello, hello, anybody? Hello, Coke Turtle. It's probably a fast turtle. Oh, and you're gone. Okay, well, good. It's just me talking to myself. Anybody? Anybody at all? Hey guys, if anybody wants to stick around, we're going to talk about the mental game of weight loss. You can ask me your questions. If you have questions about the mental game of weight loss. So why is the mental game important for weight loss? I mean, don't you just need to know the right diet? Well, imagine if everybody in the world was given the perfect diet, right? The exact perfect diet, and everybody in the world started doing that diet. And then everybody in the world would automatically lose all the weight, right? Except, no, that wouldn't happen. Why? Can anybody tell me? If we gave 100 people the perfect diet, like the absolute best, most optimized human food intake for weight loss, and obviously let's assume a mild workout program, would 100 people on the perfect diet all lose weight? No. Would half of them lose weight? Probably not. Would any of them lose a significant amount of weight and keep it off? Probably we would be talking about single-digit percentages, right? So clearly the biggest factor in whether or not people are able to lose significant amounts of weight is not their knowledge. Everybody gets on YouTube, they want to know the perfect diet, the right number of reps, the kind of workout they should be doing, the kind of cardio. But I think it's plain for everyone to see that the thing that's in the way is not a lack of information, although that is an issue. The main problem with dieting in 2021 and losing weight is mental. People, you could hand them the perfect diet plan and they're not going to stick to it. Hey, Gazlo. Today we're talking about the mental game. I can try to answer some basic stuff like that at the end. But today, basically my point is we can definitely answer that question. I've answered it a lot in other videos. The best FUPA workout. Man, yeah, see, this is my issue. We're talking about the mental game. But yeah, Gazlo, I can do a specific video on that. Maybe just remind me on the Facebook group or something. The best FUPA workout is to diminish the FUPA in your mind, and then the FUPA on your body will follow. Okay, this is very important. Is anybody following me? Okay. You all have a giant FUPA inside your brain, and it is the reason that you have a FUPA anywhere else on your body. Okay? We all are carrying weight in our mind. Happy Saturday. Okay, Jen, you're just in time for the very serious talk about the mental game of weight loss. This is the important stuff, guys. There's 13 people in this chat. There should be 13 million. This is the kind of chat, if you stick around to the end, this could change your life. Okay? Can we please get 100 people in here? Good grief. Okay, so does anybody have a problem? Amelia. All right. Does anybody have a problem with the notion that if we put 100 people on the perfect diet, right? We finally find the holy grail of dieting, right? And it's you eat these 20 foods and you eat certain amounts on this day and certain amounts on this day, and as long as you follow these rules, you're good. You're guaranteed to lose weight. Okay, how do you stop eating? It's mental, so pay attention. 100 people go on the perfect diet that's ever been created by scientists, right? It's the holy grail. If you stick to it, it works 100% of the time. How many out of those 100 people actually see results? You know, if you didn't tell people that it was the holy grail diet, you would see the results actually go down. Like the amount of success would be far less. If you actually convinced people that the diet had the power to move heaven and earth, you'd probably get a lot more buy-in. But at the end of the day, I think you would be surprised at how few people succeeded if they were given the perfect diet. And you know how I know? Yeah, the amount that would have a significant amount of weight loss and keep it off. Yeah, there you go, Murph. I believe that. But yeah, I think 5, Amelia. I think 5 probably would lose a significant amount of weight and keep it off for at least a year. Beyond that, who's to say? We're talking extremely small percentages, and this is ultimately what I care about. This is what I'm working toward, is to create a world where people have a good shot, right? If you could be selling the best diet, but if you're not helping to treat the mental side of our severe weight gain epidemic, you're not really ultimately getting at the public health problem. Our public health problem is mental. And if you want to say that our lack of information is a huge reason behind our weight issues, well, information is a subset of what's going on in our mind. Okay, the perfect diet is any one you can stick to. Pick any diet. Just stick to it. You know, most people will never do that because it's mental. It's not a character flaw. And this is where a lot of fitness people go wrong. If they can identify the fact that a lot of it's mental, they immediately go to this like, well, you just got to toughen up, buttercup kind of thing. And they're missing the fact that the reason they were able to, say, get in shape, most people who are selling fitness products online have never been severely overweight. And the ones who were severely overweight and managed to get out of it aren't willing to admit that they got lucky, in a sense. They all want to believe that they had the inner qualities that separated them from the other losers who couldn't lose the weight. And it's bullshit. Okay? You show me someone who lost 100 pounds and kept it off, and show me someone who didn't lose 100 pounds, and I will show you 2 people who got left by the wayside by their friends and family and society while they gained 100 pounds. Is that making sense? These were both people who were severely neglected. One person managed to get out, but it doesn't change the fact that how they got there to begin with wasn't ultimately all their fault. Yes, no one was forcing them to eat the food, but if we look at this from like a public health perspective, it's like addiction, right? Rates of addiction rise and fall over time. Human nature doesn't change. So clearly there are factors driving rates of addiction outside of human nature. On the whole, people are just as lazy as they were 1,000 years ago, right? So you have to have readily available chemicals for people to become dependent on. Is this making sense? So the mental game is everything. So let me give you an example. I just posted a video about pain, right? And this is the stuff that, it's funny, I posted a video a couple weeks ago about pain, and people really responded to it. They felt, I'd never seen more superlative positive comments on a video. I didn't even know that was possible on social media. And we've had a couple videos where people just leave 2,000 comments where they're like, crying emoji, this is everything. So if you understand the mental side, yes, good. Giraffes, you get it. No, I just do them when I can and when I feel it's time. I put all the replays up on my Facebook group though, and my YouTube now. So we're all agreed that even with our very imperfect fitness landscape as it is right now, if you solve the mental game, you would be able to reach all of your fitness goals. I mean, between keto and intermittent fasting and just regular, if it fits your macros, dieting and just eating less and moving more, and the information that's available, being able to listen to your body, being able to understand. Listen, if you had the mental game straight, you would be getting out of your own way. And you have no idea how much of your weight loss issues come directly from your inability to get out of your own way. There is only one thing stopping you from going from severely overweight to at a healthy weight. Yes, Jen is pointing out how crazy it is that we recognize that we have this need for change, and yet just seeing that sets off the opposite cycle in our brain. So what's that about? Why do when we try to build awareness of the problem and stop sticking our heads in the sand like ostriches, whenever we try to confront the issue, why does our pain seem to double? So this is a really good question. Why does our pain increase as we become more aware? I wish I could turn off the comments. Jeez. Your comments are great. Unprocessed trauma. Oh my gosh. Thought leader. I love your name, by the way. I've always loved that name. That's genius. I just need to put it lower. All right, here we go. Yeah, unprocessed trauma, for sure. So, what is trauma? Trauma is when something happens and it makes you feel truly powerless at a level that makes you feel like your whole worldview is broken, right? So imagine a child who is one day beaten severely by their parent. The source, like when you're 4 years old, you don't really have a conception of God. So your parents are that for you. And you, out of abject need, you need to see them as your source of all good things, because they are, right? If your parents don't feed you, you're dead in most circumstances, right? If your parents neglect you, you have no frame of reference to understand what your parents do to you as bad. So if a parent hurts you or neglects you and you feel the pain, you often interpret it a number of ways. One, you simply cannot interpret the fact that your parent is making you feel pain when you see them as the only source of good. So even very small children especially small children will have a hard time processing this information because their brains literally haven't developed enough to have an awareness that what their parents are doing is wrong and that they could go to jail for that, and that other people would look at this situation and be very angry that this had happened to them. The kids don't see any of this, right? Whereas if someone walked up to you and punched you in the face when you were 30, you would know you could call the cops and get that person sent to jail. This is a very different level of awareness, okay? So something that happened to you when you were 4 could happen to you today and it would not be traumatic. So it's this level of awareness that's really important, okay? So things that happened to you when you were 7, had they happened to you when you were 8, you might have had the capacity to understand them. When you, maybe not, right? Maybe things happened when you were 22 But because your brain hadn't fully formed yet, maybe if you were 28 when it happened, it wouldn't have had such a huge effect on you. Either way, we all carry these things in our bodies. Why do we carry them in our bodies and not just our psyche? Does this sound like some hippie nonsense? No. People for millennia have talked about holding knowledge and mental pain and emotional pain in the body, right? Nobody walked up to someone 4,000 years ago and said, hey, do you know that it's possible for the vagus nerve to transmit emotional information throughout your body? No, people just like, that girl dumped me. I got to write a poem about it and it hurts right here. So that's why people associated feelings of love and rejection in their chest, right? Around their heart. People realized, think about the term butterflies in your stomach, right? People realized thousands of years ago that if you had a lot of anxiety, it could physically affect how your stomach is feeling. Yeah, we'll get into that. So just track that it's possible for things to be stored in your body or feelings to be felt physically, right? This shouldn't be, it might sound crazy at first, but it's not at all. Now imagine that if there's something mentally that you can't process, doesn't it kind of make more sense that it could be offloaded into the body because the brain literally has nowhere to put it? Your limbic system, which is the part of your brain that's responsible for your dreams, has some role, we don't know exactly what it is, has some role in helping to break down and categorize your experiences, logging it from short-term memory into long-term memory, right? It's kind of like the RAM and your it's like your RAM, your cache, and then the hard disk drive memory, right? Your brain kind of works the same way. And when it goes to try to log certain things into your prefrontal cortex for long-term storage, it can't do it because something about it, we lack an awareness to process the information in a way that doesn't make us feel powerless, okay? You cannot log information for long-term storage if that information is doing what? If it's triggering your fight or flight mechanisms, okay? If a memory or idea triggers your fight or flight because it makes you feel helpless, it can't be logged away for safe long-term storage. Okay, so one of the things the body does with this stuff is it throws it off into your body. And remember, your body isn't really separate from your brain, right? My brain is telling my finger to do this, right? This is just signals going from my brain. Where's the line between the brain and the body? A lot of the brain chemicals that we rely on are produced in the body, right? Whoever decided that the brain and the body were two totally separate systems never asked the human body about that. And if you really think about it, it seems pretty silly. Okay, so just realize that, listen, there are nerves that go from your brain to every single part of your body, and those nerves are constantly carrying signals back and forth. It is highly likely that these neural networks are working overtime trying to hold memories for the brain to allow us to go about our day. It's probably something that is meant to be used for short-term occasions, but with long-term, especially childhood trauma, it can get locked away into your body. So think about a time. Was there a time when you were a kid and you suddenly got sick and your parents took you to the doctor or didn't and there was no explanation? Was there a time where you just had pains all over your body and your parents said something like, oh, that's growing pains? Was there a time when you were a kid, right? There's a span of time where these things kind of go away through our later teens and 20s. And then as you get into your 30s, the body loses an ability to keep these things suppressed. So what do people say? Oh, when you're 13 and you feel these things, it's growing pains. When you're 8, it's growing pains. When you're 38, it's, oh, you're getting older, right? So we have all these other ways for explaining away this pain, the embodied pain that people feel. We take it for granted that when you get to be a certain age, you can't lose weight. I hear this all the time. People are like, oh, John, how old were you when you lost the weight? Because, I'm in my late 30s. And it's really almost impossible for me. And I'm like, how old do you think I am? Like you've decided that you can't lose weight because you're a little bit older. I'm sorry. If you're alive, you can lose weight. If you're alive, you are burning calories. And if you're burning calories, you can take in less than you're burning. This is obviously it's not always that simple, but this is the crux of weight loss. So people have all these stories in their head about why they can't do this and why they can't do that, right? Why I can't get that promotion, why I can't get that guy or get that girl, right? And these often are linked to physical pains we feel in our body when confronted with the opportunity to do the things that ostensibly we want more than anything. So think about it. What's something that you're afraid to admit to yourself that you want to do? Go to Hollywood and be an actor? Become a stand-up comedian? Sell your paintings? Every single person in this chat could tell me right now something that they know in their heart that they ought to be doing. But when they actually think about doing it, they feel pain. They don't just feel anxiety, they feel it in their body somewhere. Now, let's compare that to the feeling of you have a stressful day at work, you come home, you find a notice tagged on your door, and it says, hey, your dog is barking and the apartment complex is saying you got to get rid of your dog. Instantly, you feel like if I don't go to McDonald's and get a tub of ice cream, I'm going to die. I'm going to spontaneously combust. Okay? How different is that feeling from somebody saying, oh, hey, I heard that you wanted to be a professional artist, and I took all these paintings out of your garage and I put them in the museum for everyone to see. So come on down. Everyone's going to be looking at your art tonight. And right, you would pee your pants. You would literally almost choke on nothing. At the visceral fear you'd be feeling. Your world would just go, whoa. You'd get tunnel vision. You might get cottonmouthy. Parts of your body might go numb. Does anybody in this chat have parts of their body that just go numb and tingly and they don't know why? I do. I still to this day. I've been through so many trauma treatments and thousands of hours of meditation. I've seen my body change drastically. And my feet still can go from feeling totally fine to, in an instant, they can be completely numb and feel like somebody just filled them up with 500 pounds of air pressure. And from the outside, they don't look any different. But it's just completely how I feel. So, is this making sense? I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys, but if you're here, Vince, Jen, some of the people who have been here a few times, you really deserve to start hearing this stuff, because this is actually the stuff that's going to make weight loss easy. Okay? Amber, you're tracking. Good. So, we can have feelings in our body associated with things that we believe we're allowed to do and things we believe we're not allowed to do. And these feelings, so feeling in the body, feeling of permission, and then feelings of what we truly want to do. So anytime we can just hit anywhere in this triangle, and it's probably more complicated than that, but this is why you are constantly in a war with yourself. Because if you have the presence of mind to connect with your deepest values, maybe you go for a hike and you get out in the woods and you're able to be present and your true self is able to peek through all the noise and bullshit in your brain and go, hey, we should probably paint more because that makes us feel alive and close to ourselves and close to the divine that's all around us, or what have you. And so you go home and you go to try to paint, and then you feel sick to your stomach, your mouth goes dry, and your left arm goes numb. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm having a stroke. And then because you think you're having a stroke, you now need to comfort yourself. So if you were having a stroke, it probably wouldn't be a good idea to eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's, yet that is what we do. Anybody else experience something like this? This cycle of, when you happen to connect to what you truly want, you then run headlong into this thing that says, if you exercise your freedom to be who you truly are, you will fucking die. And then it will make this so present and so apparent in your body that it's painful to actually look at that long enough to realize that it's not true. And so you bounce away from the physical feelings and you try to numb out the physical feelings with, if you're on this chat, some version of food, and quite possibly also alcohol, God knows what else, TV, anything and everything that people can be addicted to. Whether it's, you get lazy because guess what? It's friggin' exhausting. It's exhausting to go, oh, I would like to paint. And then, but I can't do that. And oh, I'm a piece of shit. And oh, blah, 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 blah. And then all the judgment you feel about eating ice cream. Yeah, the pandemic showed a lot of people that their world, right? Okay, let's talk about the pandemic. The reason the pandemic, I don't believe in collective trauma. Trauma is always individual, and I think the pandemic is actually a great example of that. Because what you saw was a lot of people forced to rely on themselves more, and what they found was that they didn't have tools. They were relying on other people a lot more codependently than they would have thought, even if it was just people, just getting to see people at work. Like, yes, on one level, we all need social interaction. But when that social interaction was taken away, people had a disproportionate downward emotional response, right? So, one sec. So people in the pandemic, their world was shaken. The reason it was traumatic for people, the reason it sparked the fight or flight mechanism is because of one fundamental thing that it pointed out, which is that you thought this couldn't happen. If you were 7 and you thought that certain things couldn't happen to you, like your parents couldn't hurt you or couldn't neglect you, and then it happened, that rift in your worldview, where the very fabric of your world comes apart, that will terrify you to your very core. Now, what's interesting is that I noticed that the only people who did not have that response to the pandemic were people who found solace in a massive level of delusion where they were able to convince themselves that nothing was wrong, or people who, like me, have been accustomed to seeing their world torn asunder, and they saw exactly what was happening from go. I never personally had a coronavirus freak out because to me it was just another day in the neighborhood. I saw the whole world going through, on a small level, the things that I had gone through as my world fell apart from unprocessed childhood trauma. So what's the point here? The point is that the pandemic gave everybody an opportunity to see what it's like to have the bottom just completely fall out, and to realize that the things that you assumed were there to keep the wheels on and to keep you safe weren't actually there and hadn't been there for some time. And imagine that happening to a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old, okay, or a 13-year-old. Imagine how they would cope. And I talked about this on live chats before, but when kids feel overwhelmed and they feel their world falling apart because mom and dad are in the next room screaming curses at one another, they don't have access to black tar heroin. They don't have access to cocaine, right? They don't have access to hardly anything but TV, food, things of that nature. So this is why so many people who, so many people who deal with weight issues, well, no, that's the other way around. So many people who have unprocessed childhood trauma have weight issues later in life. Because if you're new to the chat, if you have a weight issue, it's because you are stuck in this cycle where things happen to you and you have to react because you've been conditioned like a dog, basically. Pavlovian response. The little bell rings and you hit fight or flight. And that's why it doesn't matter how strong you are, because no one is strong enough to resist fight or flight. This is why people don't stand up to interrogation. This is why people don't usually outlast the torturers like Jack Bauer. Because if you spend long enough in fight or flight, if your sleep goes to shit, right? This is the most effective torture technique, interrogation technique that there is, right? Is just sleep deprivation. You see your sleep go to crap over time, and you're going to see all of your inner strength disappear, right? No one is immune to this. No one is tough enough that the world couldn't be, their world couldn't be shaken to the point where they see their fight or flight mechanisms triggered, and then they go racing for some way to make the alarm bell turn off, right? And for most of us in this chat, the alarm bells go off and we look to food. So how do we undo all of this? At the end of the day, and I'm not going to be able to get into all of it because it's literally would take me weeks or months to tell you everything I know about this topic. But at the end of the day, what happens is you now are not the same person who experienced what made you feel powerless when you were young. Even if you have been stuck in the same cycles, you have still accumulated a lot of other experience and knowledge and awareness throughout your life. So for instance, if your parents left you somewhere for 6 hours and you were scared and terrified when you were 10, if somebody did that to you now, you wouldn't process that in the same way. So you can begin to share that level of awareness with this sort of, I could say your inner child, but it's really a snapshot taken in, it's a snapshot of you frozen in fear that couldn't be processed into your long-term memory. So it's you existing as a memory. It's not your inner child in the sense that it has to always be there. It's a memory that triggers the same mental responses as if you were there experiencing it right now. This is why unprocessed trauma is so difficult to deal with, because it lights up centers in your brain that actually shut off the rational parts of your brain. It shuts off your executive function, your ability to look at your behaviors and say, I would like to do this, I would not like to do this, and then actually follow through on it. It annihilates your sense of self. It annihilates your sense of the divine. That, yes, there is a part of your brain responsible for your connection to a sense of God or a higher power. It shuts down your ability to put your feelings into words, right? People going through an active flashback, the part of the brain that gets nuked when someone has a stroke, It's the same part of the brain, just goes offline for them. That's why most people, when they're having a severe traumatic flashback, have trouble explaining to other people around them what's going on. Everybody tracking? So the trick is, when you feel these fight or flight symptoms rising up, listen, you can't fight against them. If you fight against yourself, it just deepens the sense that, well, we must really need to fight or flight. Okay? It just deepens the sense of alarm. So if you need these feelings to go away, they can't. It's just going to get worse. If you need your anxiety to go away, it's just going to feed the fire. Okay? So if you realize that all these feelings, the pain you feel, the anxiety you feel, is in a sense you at a younger age feeling those things. You are a time traveler in a sense. And you can back this up by the fact that the part of your brain that processes duration also gets shut off. This is why you can get stuck feeling like something that happened 20 years ago is still happening, right? And people say, move on. Well, those people have this part of their brain working. That's why they can move on. And someone who is suffering from unprocessed trauma, they don't get to just move on. It's a physical, actual barrier in how their brain works. It has nothing to do with how strong they are or how good of a character they have or how good of a person they are, okay? There are biological realities. So a lot of our intuitive ways of dealing with our pain and our anxiety and stuff like that, yeah, because it is offline. Your prefrontal cortex, if you have a lot of unprocessed trauma that's being triggered all the time, these parts of your brain get shut off so much and so often that they literally stay just off. There are whole parts of your brain when you're severely in the shit that are just not there. I mean, I don't even really remember the first year that my second daughter was born. I have like 2 or 3 memories. And that was during the worst time for me. I just literally wasn't even there. Often what people describe as dissociation comes from this lack of sense of self. It's parts of your brain literally turning off. And it takes a lot of, I don't want to say work, it takes a little bit to get the lights back on. But when you do get them back on, it gets a little bit easier to have more awareness. Yeah, CPTSD with dissociation. Healing is quite an adventure. Yes, that's exactly what I had. I still have it, right? I mean, it's whatever. So the trick is, in so many different ways, to not get sucked into the fight, to not get sucked into the reactivity to try to make these feelings go away. Because it's ultimately the same thing as when we try to eat ice cream to make the pain go away. By seeking comfort, you're actually directly assaulting the part of you that is generating these feelings of angst and worry and panic. And you cannot slap someone around enough to get them to stop having a panic attack, right? Imagine, does anybody here have a kid? Have you ever seen your child having a temper tantrum? You cannot negotiate with them. You cannot reason them out of the temper tantrum. You cannot threaten them out of the temper tantrum. The only thing that works with healing a temper tantrum is to pick the child up and make them feel loved. And when you make a child feel loved, all of a sudden they can be calm. Because when you're trying to reason with them, when you're trying to strong arm them, when you're trying to punish them, all they see is, I'm asking for love. They don't realize that they're asking for it in the least helpful way possible. Yes, even for teens. Guess what? Most people who don't deal with this stuff or don't get to deal with it as a child, they have to deal with it as adults. So you see people at your work, the person at work who's just always raising their hand in a meeting to cause friggin' problems, they need a hug. You ever jokingly hear someone say, oh, someone's dad didn't give him enough hugs, right? That's true. And that person still needs hugs in one way or another. people need unconditional love. They need to be loved so that they can act the way we all need them to act. And if we keep demanding that people be perfect before we love them, we're going to keep the cycle alive, both inside of ourselves and for other people. You start to realize the power that comes in loving people first and then seeing their true selves able to emerge because they feel safe, right? If the biggest asshole you know, they walk around in a constant paranoia and an inner sense of insecurity. And that's why they're constantly looking for win-lose outcomes with everyone that they're talking to, okay? And if you think about what a pain in the ass that would be to like, I have to be nice and love this person who makes life at work a living hell, now you understand what it's like to live with yourself. Because you are the asshole at work. These things inside of you that are constantly raising their hand and causing problems. You know, that kid at school who's like, teacher, you forgot to give us homework. And everyone's like, Becky, right? It just seems to be like they're just causing more problems, and the last thing you need is more problems. You just want to have one day where you can go to work and keep your head down and get all the shit you need to get done. But these people keep making it harder, and it just aggravates you. And what you find is that it's not so much the person raising their hand and causing a ruckus. It's you needing them to not do it, which really drives you insane, right? And this is how we get deeper and deeper and deeper into these cycles, and why we truly hate these things inside of ourselves. We call them our demons, right? They're not our demons. They're not things that need to be cut out of us. They're not things that need to be diminished or like figured out, right? They don't need to be therapied away. They are there with you, and they will be there till the day you die. And there's nothing you're going to do to get rid of them. So stop even trying. Stop it. You are not going to win the war. But what you can do is end the fucking war. End it. You ever see a parent who has a relationship with their child where they're just getting in screaming matches every day? Who's ultimately responsible for this? The parent. Because if the parent is allowing themselves to get into a knockdown, drag-out screaming war with their child, that's on the parent, not the child. Parts work, I believe, definitely figures into this. I'm not an expert on it, but I know my therapist has, when he hears me riffing on this stuff, he has talked about parts work. So I assume it does. And yeah, I definitely believe that parenting ourselves is the key to finding a way out of this hell that we create. Similar to the hell a parent might be feeling stuck in when their behavior is simply adding fuel to a fire. So, end the war. And you start to end the war when you stop needing these things inside of you, these impulses, to stop being impulses. When you can allow the anxiety to be there and not need the anxiety to go away. When you can admit to yourself that you're angry. Ooh, this is a big one. Admit to yourself that you're angry, because we suppress things not just because we're scared of the emotions. We suppress emotions because we judge them. We think, I'm not supposed to feel this emotion. It could be something that, like, the way you were brought up religiously tells you it's not okay to feel. It's not okay to feel angry, right? Maybe you were abused by an angry parent. So you associate the feeling of anger with being like that person who hurt you. So you don't ever allow yourself to feel anger. But ultimately, anger doesn't make you a bad person. Taking out that anger on other people is what makes your behavior problematic. So when we don't allow ourselves to process feelings of of anger or lust or jealousy or all the bad emotions, right, that we think make us bad people, the ticking time bomb just gets a little bit bigger and the fuse gets a little bit shorter. So how can I wrap this up? Seek as much as possible to hold space for things that you don't know how to respond to, because that is so much better than reacting. And you'll find that it might take months or years for you to get good at this, but it is one of the best things you'll ever do. And when you don't have to react, when you can just be with something and not solve it and not make it go away and not have some mountaintop experience, not have the meditation or the therapy session where everything clicks and then you feel better and it's never a problem again, to allow it to be messy, to allow it to be there, you will find that these things can ebb and flow and they don't force you to react. And the more you find that space, the more you can give these things space, the more you will give yourself space to go about your business. You'll give yourself space to see it. Okay, I see that thing telling me that I'm stressed and if I don't eat ice cream, I'm going to die. But I'm going to breathe here and I'm going to feel that. And just noticing that I am the space in which that feeling is happening, I realize that I am the context, not this sense of impending death. That's not the context. Me. I am the context. And when you hold space for you and who you really are, you start to get to know who you really are. And you start to connect with the quality, the deep quality in who you are. And this will only help you as you reshape your relationship with yourself. Ultimately, you will be able to love these things the way a parent loves a child who's throwing a temper tantrum. And you will be able to, like a parent, even a struggling parent, even a parent who's tearing their hair out, will be able to stop yourself when you're getting into the argument with the 4-year-old and instead have the presence and the wisdom to stop your reactivity and not get in a fight with a 4-year-old like you've entered the octagon with a weight class peer and someone who's also been training in MMA. Like so often we get stuck in these battles with the children in our homes or in our hearts. And you'll be able to say, listen, I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to do this. And that thing inside of you that you're terrified of, realize that it's just a piece of you frozen in fear, a snapshot taken a long time ago that hasn't been able to be processed. But if you can love that thing even a little bit, then you can love it a bit more the next time, and a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. And eventually, when you can create space to hold this thing and sit with it long enough, your awareness of all the things that you've seen transpire in the decades since this snapshot was taken will slowly trickle in, the way a parent can be a space of safety for a child that makes all their anxieties disappear. You can do this for the unprocessed trauma inside of you. And when you do that, these things will finally stop bouncing off your limbic system, right? Which is why you have nightmares. Why you have nightmares that just get stuck in a loop. This is what's happening. Your limbic system is trying to process these things for long-term storage, and it's failing. And when you finally take the time to love these things, when your whole life you've been running from them, you turn toward them, you will not be overcome by them. The worst case scenario will not happen. You will find peace, you will find harmony, and you will find unity with all the pieces of yourself that you've been lacking for so long. The things that made it hard to do the right things for yourself. Make sense? Okay, let me answer some questions before I go. Any questions? We're losing numbers, so I guess it's weird. I'm seeing a bunch of people following me, but I don't see a bunch of people. Okay, you gained 20 pounds over lockdown. What would be the best thing you could do to start losing it? Thanks for your question. Why did you gain 20 pounds over lockdown? Hey, Michelle. Why did you gain 20 pounds over lockdown? Because lockdown doesn't necessarily mean that you have to gain weight. A lot of people talk about it like that's a one-to-one connection. So food, LOL, and my mental health went bad. Okay, so food didn't cause you to lose the weight. College professor, right? I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything. Like, I wanted to help you work through this so you can see the reality as much as possible, because that's going to actually make things a lot easier on you. Okay, you gained 20 pounds over lockdown because you ate more than you were accustomed to eating. And you were eating more calories than you were putting out. And this was a response to poor mental health. So mental health can mean a lot of things. What exactly was the emotion that you were running from and that you were trying to tamp down food with? Yes, thought leader. That's very true, right? We're not trying to identify how we're going to place blame on you. We're just trying to see reality. And so often the shame cycles are what actually keep us from seeing the reality of what happened. And that's why we say, the situation caused this. And it's not the situation, it's our response to the situation. So happy GVRL Rachie. If you can identify the emotion that was driving you to eat more and move less, if it was just fear, I guarantee you that fear, it's like a little thread that can lead you to deeper answers. And so you can actually use these eating triggers as a way that, the great thing about triggers, right, the things that make you go off your diet, is that they have to show their hand. So if something's triggering you and you keep losing to it, right, by reacting to it and eating to comfort that thing, if you just stop and you don't eat and you actually grab the thread and sit with it and follow it, right, watch how the pain moves around in your body. Don't fight the pain, just sit with the pain, right? You will slowly work your way down to where that tentacle is emanating from. And you will see eventually a piece of you who wants to feel safe, wants to feel loved, and wants to feel seen. And when you realize you have the ability to provide all those things to that place inside of you, then the need to eat emotionally will simply disappear. And yes, back to what Thought Leader said, absolutely realize that none of this is your fault. None of this is your fault. It happened the way it did because it had to. And from here on out, just because of what happened before, that has no bearing on what has to happen in the future, right? I would never go so far as to say that we're all in control, because I think that would be a delusion. We aren't in control. We control nothing. And actually, when you take away your need to control the past and the future, you're able to have calm, stillness, peace that makes it so much easier to just do good things for yourself and let things be simple. Because ultimately, what's simpler than going for a walk and eating the right amount of food for what your body needs? This is so simple. And that's ultimately, when we boil down all the strategy around how to lose weight, that's ultimately what it all is, right? I hate eating food now and just see everything as some calories adding up. Okay. How to deal with that? Why do you still eat food then, if you hate it? Mangat, are you still there? Okay, Bib Michelle, you say you're lazy and you need to get motivated, okay? So let's break all these down as actions, okay? Because when we talk about what we are, that gets problematic for a number of reasons. So let's say I'm fat because I eat pasta at 11 p.m. and then go straight to bed. This is a factual statement. This is a statement of awareness. This is great. And I'm lazy. Okay, hold on. This is an interpretation. And I need to get motivated. Okay, and so what you've done is you've correctly identified the course of action that is causing you to gain weight and keep weight on. But then you make a statement about yourself that is a judgment and isn't necessarily true. And then you list the solution, and the solution is the least true thing of everything that you wrote. Okay? Why are you on this call if you're not motivated? Being motivated means you would like to do a thing, right? You would like to do it willing enough that you would take action. Okay? So motivation is relative. Motivation is always relative. Okay? If the barrier is here and your motivation is here, do we say that we're motivated? No, we say we need more motivation. So I could have more motivation than any human who's ever lived, but if the barrier is a little bit higher than it, so is the problem really the motivation or is it the barrier? I'm going to fast forward for you. It's the barrier. You have motivation. You have motivation to lose weight. The problem is you've got a barrier that's always managing to just be a little bit higher than your motivation. Why don't we put some effort into looking at the barrier and how it's so high to begin with? Stop trying to be more motivated. Stop trying to convince yourself that you want things that you already know you want. And more so, look at the barrier that says you can't have those things. You want to eat in a healthy way and be able to go through your nighttime routine without hurting yourself. You want that. That's why you're here. So when you ask yourself, okay, if I want this, and you really see that you do want it, but routinely I'm not able to do that, what is changing the direction on the train tracks to take your actions away from what actually feeds your true self and your health? Okay. And that is actually the place where you can start to put your energy, see the negative, the false beliefs that are perpetuating these action cycles. And once you sit with the beliefs long enough and find their root and show with your present awareness, show the child behind those beliefs that they are loved no matter what, and that they are seen and that they are safe. Guess what? The false beliefs, they can't stand up. And then the actions that follow those false beliefs, it's not hard at all to change those habits. Trust me, I've changed some pretty nasty habits with complete ease because I did it by identifying the beliefs first that were motivating those things and, putting myself back together. Okay. BBL. Right on, Jen. You're welcome, Vince. All right, I think I'm going to run. I hope this was helpful. Not a lot of people stayed for this one, but I guess this one was just for the hardcores. I mean, everyone wants to join the live chat that's like, lose fat fast. But like, this is the stuff, if you guys sat through this one, I'm excited for you because this is the stuff that's going to make weight loss easy. I keep saying this. I don't think people believe me. Weight loss is easy. When you start to realize the immensity of all the crap that is just the result of you getting in your own way. And it's not even like you, it's not your true self getting in your own way. It's you trying to keep yourself safe that's getting in the way. And when you realize that you have never succeeded at keeping yourself safe with any of these techniques like eating or ignoring your pain, you'll start to realize how futile it's all been. You can see, listen, this got me nowhere. So why don't I just once not react to it? And you will feel a weird sensation, and that sensation is you feeling connected to your true self a little bit because you're not spending time in reactivity. And it's not something you get right once, right? This will take you to new levels and new levels and new levels. And when you get to level 34, you will be granted an opportunity to do this with more and more sort of fine. It starts like you're moving big boulders, right? Big boulders of bullshit out of the way. And then, on level 34, maybe you're like a laparoscopic surgeon, moving some of the finer points that are holding back your greatest expansion as a person. So I hope that this was inspiring to you. You are motivated enough. You are enough. You have everything you need inside of you. Start bringing the water levels down, okay? Focus on the obstacles and remove them so that the water can just flow, because it wants to just flow. You don't pour out a cup of water on top of a mountain and have to worry about whether or not that water is going to get to the ocean. It's going to get there. The only reason it wouldn't is if somebody built a dam in its path, okay? And the only person who's going to do that is you, or the parts of your brain that are basically crying for attention, and we keep numbing out and distracting from them. End that cycle. End the ignoring yourself. Stop translating your pain as being from some evil thing outside of you when you start to see that it's just you, frozen in fear from a time long ago, and you can love it. It'll end the war. It will. I literally would not be alive. Guys, losing 200 pounds, that's nothing. I shouldn't be alive. I shouldn't be here. Okay, so if you guys could see the condition I was in 3 years ago, you wouldn't fucking believe it. You would not believe it. Okay? All right, guys. I have love for you. Thank you for the regulars. It really means a lot that you guys show up and you're working so hard. I can't wait to see you get everything that you deserve, because you do deserve it. All right, I will see you guys next time. Probably Monday I'll do the next live chat, and maybe if I actually remember to, I might set a specific time. Okay, be sure to follow me if you haven't. Tell a friend. You can follow me on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram. Both of those links are in my bio. The Giovanni Gaming, you can watch the replay to this at my Facebook group. Okay, and I think the next time I do a live, I am going to Thought Leader. I really got to know who is the person behind Thought Leader, because that is just a fantastic name. I've actually taken screenshots of all my favorite TikTok usernames, and there are some real doozies. But yeah, thought leader, that's so creative. I'm honored that the thought leader is in this community. 69,420, no less. I didn't even see that part. Oh my gosh. Wow, you are a gem. You're doing the Lord's work out here. Do I take clients? Right now, I'm not taking one-on-one clients because I just don't have the time. I honestly got on social media to generate a few more clients, but then like in a month, 120,000 people followed me on TikTok, and clearly there is a far greater need for what I'm spewing. And said every PhD ever. What? Anyway. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to help everyone. Maybe I could make more money right now. If I just took one-to-one clients, I could probably charge an arm and a leg, but if I could help everyone and make less money, that's what I would do. But actually, you know how it works. If you put your stuff out there, you know, the financial abundance will get to you one way or another. You can't stop it. Patreon. Do you guys think I should do a Patreon? Because one thing that the Patreon would do is it would allow us to build like a culture. Like I'm trying to do that in the Facebook group, but the Facebook group was 6 people when I started, and now it's 1,500. It's hard to build a culture. I cannot keep up. Yeah. Patreon. I wonder. I've literally spent the last few days like doing nothing but meditating on how to move forward. Nobody under 30 is on Facebook anymore. Where you go, I will follow. Jen, you are going to be so high level in the cultness that's going to really advance you in the Oaks cult. Good. Ray. Cool. I'm glad you're around. Yeah, the cool thing with Patreon does have a lot of advantages. I mean, I like Patreon. Two of my favorite podcasts that I listen to multiple times a week, I gladly pay for on Patreon. And I kind of wonder if Patreon would allow me to do like a tier where everyone, Jerk Coop Mins, you can join the Facebook group, and doing a routine exercise is not great for losing weight. Is that true? No. Just start off with whatever exercise you enjoy, because consistency is what's going to get you there in the long run. Consistency is everything. Consistency and small increases along the way are going to get you everywhere you need to go. Yeah, I appreciate that. Hey, if you guys want to pay me, I did set up my Patreon. You can go to PayPal. PayPal.me/John Oaks Coaching. That's Oaks with an E, John with an H. You can always support the cause there. One person already did, and that was very much appreciated. Jen, you're the best. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I want to get paid so I can basically take all the money and like find like subsidized new ways to expand the operation. Maybe hire like an assistant or someone. I'd really like someone to do like video stuff for me, like take my lives and chop them up into like, you know, a 9-minute segment where I talk about one thing and then like make that a nice YouTube video. If extra skin goes away with time, I don't think it'll all go away, but I've been really surprised at how much of mine went away. I think that's a great reason to exercise hard and to watch out for your nutrition. It's also quite possible that certain forms of fasting, be it intermittent fasting or, multi-day fasting, might help. There's no firm science on this stuff, but I wouldn't worry too much about it because, there's other options. Cross that bridge when you get to it. That don't worry about the skin thing because it's just worry about one thing at a time. You want to live long enough to enjoy your floppy skin. If that's the trade-off, I'm sure we'd all rather live till 80 with a little, because honestly, how much longer before you're so old that everything gets loose anyways? Like, it's a losing battle. None of us gets out alive, and none of us checks out with like super tight skin. Okay. So, it's not as big of an issue as you'd think. So yeah, I'm definitely open. If you guys want to contact me with ideas for how to expand the operation and how to reach more people more effectively, I would love your ideas. I'm super open-minded. I appreciate your guys' support. I appreciate that you guys want to help me expand this, because I think you guys probably have stuck around because it's clear I'm not just here trying to sell something. I'm not really that much of a business person I have run businesses, but it took a lot of growth for me to get to that place. It doesn't really matter how you lift weights for weight loss. Just find a rep range you like, and then find the amount of weight that keeps you in that rep range, a couple reps short of failure, and then try to raise the amount that you're lifting or the reps that you're lifting week to week. That is how you put on muscle. That is how you just keep muscle if you're in a really, pretty aggressive calorie restriction. That's true. Yeah, thought leader, that is a little bit harder to do in this way. It's harder to communicate. And plus, if I get messages on Patreon, it's only from like patrons, whereas I get bombarded with DMs from every Tom, Dick, and Harry on TikTok and on Instagram and elsewhere. So like I have to keep remembering to deactivate my website because people keep contacting me through the website. Right on. It'd be really cool to meet all you guys. But yeah, I appreciate your feedback. And Discord now pretty much. All right. Yeah, it seems like Patreon is pretty much, it's not weird anymore. I guess I've been around long enough. The last few years have gone by really fast. So I remember when it first came out, I was like, this is genius. I hope people catch on to how cool it is. Because ultimately, don't we want to be able to like prevent somebody from like canceling our favorite TV show? Like, what if you could just keep your favorite media going with pledges, right? It cuts out the middleman. It allows you to give value for the value you're getting, and it gives me joy to do that. So I don't see a point in like trying to be all noble and not take money. I'm not too good for money because it's not like it's all flow, right? Remember, the water, you pour out the cup of water at the top of the hill and it just flows downhill. Same thing with money. Like, you can't be afraid to accept the good things that are coming into your life because it's going to pass through you and create goodness for other people. So whether it's allowing yourself to lose the weight or finally have a healthy romantic relationship or all these things, it's like, this is why people who win the lottery, they end up blowing it because they can't allow themselves to actually have this thing that they've dreamed of having, because in reality, they've been actively keeping abundance at arm's length. And so whether it's your health, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your financial situation, you have to, if not open the door, when the door opens, let it stay open. Awesome. Limace, Eli Mace. I never know how to say people's names. Ken's sis mommy. Kenzie's mommy. There we go. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna go hang out with my family, and I will see you next time.